There is a quiet battle happening in almost every mind today. It begins the moment we wake up and reach for the glowing screen beside our bed. Our eyes haven't even adjusted to the morning light, but the flood of messages, headlines, and alerts already pulls our thoughts in 100 directions. The world calls this normal, but William James would have called it dangerous. He believed that our attention is not just a tool, but a force, a living energy that shapes who we become. He said that what we choose to focus on is what our reality becomes, yet somewhere between endless scrolling and multitasking. We forgot that focus is a muscle, not a mood, not a gift, not a fleeting spark that comes and goes, but something that grows stronger or weaker, depending on how we train it. James once stood before his students at Harvard and spoke about the mind's tendency to wander. He compared attention to a beam of light in a dark room, moving from one object to another. He knew that the beam could not shine everywhere at once, but if we learned to hold it steady for even a few seconds longer than usual, we could change the entire texture of our lives. Imagine how different your day would feel if your thoughts did not splinter so easily. If you could sit with a single task, a single emotion, a single sentence until it revealed its meaning. Most of us never get there, because the moment we try to focus, our inner world rebels. Our mind starts whispering that we are missing something important somewhere else. The modern world has trained us to worship distraction. Every app, every notification, every little red bubble on our screen is designed to pull our attention away from the present moment until we begin to believe that focus is something unnatural, that concentration belongs to monks or geniuses. But James saw it differently. He believed that attention was the foundation of freedom, that to choose what to attend to was to choose one's life direction. He wrote that the essence of will is the ability to bring back a wandering attention over and over again. And each time we do that, it is like lifting a small weight for the mind. Most people don't realize that every moment of distraction is not just lost time. It is a small tear in the fabric of our inner discipline. Picture a student sitting at a desk trying to read a single page. Her phone vibrates once she glances at it, and before she knows it, 30 minutes are gone. She tries again, but now her brain is restless. The words blur. She feels guilty. She blames herself for being lazy, but what is really happening is that her mental muscle is weak. She has been training for years not to focus. Every swipe, every notification has been a repetition of distraction. Just as lifting weights builds strength, feeding restlessness builds weakness. The good news is that it can be rebuilt. William James believed that by deliberately bringing our attention back to what matters, we slowly reclaim our power. This does not mean fighting thoughts. It means noticing when they drift and returning gently again and again. It is a practice like breathing, like walking. Each return is a victory, not a failure. When we treat focus this way, it stops being punishment and starts becoming an act of self-respect. Tonight, when you sit quietly for 2 minutes, try this. Pick one simple thing, a sound, a word, your own breathing, and every time your mind wanders, do not scold yourself. Just return. That gentle return is the beginning of strength. There is something deeply human about the struggle to stay present. It reveals how easily our attention can be stolen, but it also reveals that we care, that we want to live with purpose. Focus is not cold or rigid. It is love made visible through patience. It is the way we tell the world this moment matters. This person matters, this work matters, in a noisy world that wants us divided and scattered. To train your focus is to reclaim your soul. James called it the education of attention, the quiet revolution that happens inside. When we remember that focus is not about tightening the mind, but about opening it to what truly deserves to be seen. Focus begins where impatience ends. But no one tells us that when we are young, we are told to try harder, sit still, be disciplined, yet no one explains that the mind does not obey through force. It softens through relationship. You cannot command attention the way you command a dog. It must trust you. It must believe that you will not abandon it the moment something shinier appears. William James understood this when he wrote about the will, not as a weapon but as a companion. He saw willpower as the art of persuasion, persuading the self to stay present long enough for meaning to emerge. He believed that every person has two selves inside one, that acts automatically reacting, chasing and fleeing, and another that watches quietly, choosing, noticing, guiding. The more we feed the second self, the more strength we gain. Most of us live trapped in the automatic self. We are driven by the next notification, the next task, the next worry. Our energy scatters, and when night falls, we feel tired without understanding why we have spent the entire day in fragments. Attention is like sunlight. It nourishes what it touches, but spread too thin, it burns nothing into life. A scattered mind is like a field of seeds with no water. Nothing grows there, only weeds of anxiety and exhaustion. James wanted us to water one seed at a time. He believed that focus is not about saying no to the world, but about saying yes to the right things. The act of choosing itself builds identity. When you decide to attend to one thing, you declare who you are becoming. Imagine a writer. Sitting before a blank page, she stares for minutes. The temptation to check her phone hums like an itch. She tells herself she will just look for inspiration, but she knows that if she leaves now, the thread will break. So she stays. Her breath slows. The first sentence arrives, then the second, and suddenly time disappears. She enters flow. This is the invisible magic. James described the merging of attention and purpose, the quiet disappearance of self that only comes when focus deepens far enough to dissolve effort. She finishes an hour later, surprised to find peace, not because she forced herself, but because she allowed the noise to pass, like wind around a mountain. Focus, like any muscle, grows only when it is challenged. The discomfort you feel when you resist. Distraction is not failure. It is the burn of growth. James would have said that the moment you bring back your attention, you are exercising the moral energy of the mind. That phrase sounds old-fashioned, but it means something. Timeless. Every return to the task strengthens the invisible fibers of will. Just as an athlete repeats small movements every day, you can train your attention in the small moments of life. The next time you listen to someone speak, keep your eyes on them. Notice the impulse to drift, then return. This simple act builds quiet power. There was once a man who worked in an open office where noise was constant. His job demanded creativity, but the chaos drained him. Instead of escaping, he began to train himself. Each morning, he would pick one sound, maybe the hum of a computer or the ticking of a clock, and let it anchor his awareness. At first, it felt pointless. Then one day he realized that even in noise he could find stillness. His colleagues called him calm. But what he had found was control, not over others, but over himself. James would have smiled at that, because he believed freedom was not doing whatever you wanted, but being able to direct your mind wherever you chose. Try this tonight when you lie in bed before sleeping. Bring one thought into your awareness. Something. Small, maybe gratitude for a friend or a simple wish to rest. Keep it there until your breath slows. Notice when your mind wanders to plans or regrets, then return softly without judgment. Each return is a small act of training, a single repetition. In the gym of consciousness the next morning you will notice it is easier to focus. Not because life has changed, but because you have begun to shape. The muscle focus is not about perfection, it is about presence. It does not erase distraction. It teaches you to move through it without losing yourself. James once said that the great thing in education is to make our nervous system our ally, not our enemy. Every time you choose to attend to one thing with kindness, you are rewriting your nervous system. You are teaching your brain to serve your soul and not the noise around you. And that quiet practice, repeated again and again, is how you begin to remember what real freedom feels like. There is a moment every person meets when the noise of the world grows louder than the voice within, and we mistake that noise for truth. We wake up to messages demanding attention. We scroll, we react, we try to catch up, but something inside us feels thinner every day. The muscle of focus weakens not because we lack strength, but because we have forgotten silence. William James believed that the foundation of will was the ability to pause, to create an instant of inner quiet before reacting. He taught that freedom begins in that gap between impulse and choice, that single breath where attention returns home before the mind rushes away. When you practice that pause, even once you begin to build the invisible architecture of presence, it is not glamorous, it is not quick, but it is the start of becoming the kind of person who can stand still while the world spins. Every modern device around you is built to shrink that pause. Algorithms know that the more quickly you react, the more you will stay hooked, so you begin to lose that sacred second. Between stimulus and response, James saw that 100 years ago he watched his students lose themselves in constant stimulation and warned that a life of scattered attention would lead to a divided soul. He was right. Every divided attention divides. The self we think we are multitasking, but really we are splitting our energy until nothing inside us feels whole. Focus then becomes an act of healing. To attend to one thing deeply is to return all your fragments back into one living thread. Imagine a woman sitting in a coffee shop. She used to love mornings, now they feel like survival. She tries to write a report while checking emails, while thinking of bills, while feeling guilty for not calling her mother. Her hands move fast, but her heart feels slow. Then one morning she decides to change. She closes the other tabs. She turns her phone face down and simply looks at one sentence on her screen for 5 minutes. Nothing profound happens yet. When she finishes that paragraph, something inside feels clearer. Smaller perhaps, but stronger. This is the quiet reward James promised, the dignity of choosing one thing and honoring it fully. Focus is not about shutting out the world. It is about letting the right things in. It is the doorway. To depth without focus, even pleasure feels thin. You can watch a sunset and still be restless if your mind is divided. But if you learn to stay with the color of light, the sound of the wind, the warmth of air, your nervous system remembers what it means to belong in a moment. You do not have to escape your thoughts, you have to anchor them. This is the paradox James loved. Attention is both discipline and surrender. The more we learn to hold it, the more gently life begins to unfold. You can test this right now. Pick something near you, a pen, a plant, a sound, and give it your full awareness for 1 minute. Do not analyze it, do not judge it. Simply observe it. Notice how your mind fights the simplicity. It wants to flee. But if you stay, you will feel a small shift. The noise dims slightly. That is your focus muscle waking up. It has been sleeping under years of scattered habits. When you feed it this attention, it grows like a seed in sunlight, and soon you will notice that tasks become lighter, conversations feel deeper, and moments stop rushing past like ghosts. James often spoke of the effort of attention as the essence of moral action. Not because morality is about rules, but because to attend fully to anything, whether it is another person or a problem, requires care. And care is the soul's deepest expression. When you give full attention to someone you love, you are saying without words, you matter. This is why focus heals relationships, because people can sense when your mind is elsewhere, and they can feel when you are truly there. Once there was a teacher who noticed her students growing restless during reading time. Instead of scolding them, she told them to close their books and listen to the sound of the rain against the window. They sat quietly for a minute. The noise outside faded. Then she asked them to open their books again. Something shifted. They read slower. They smiled. She later wrote that the most powerful lesson was not in the book, but in that moment of stillness. She had rediscovered what William James called selective attention, the ability to choose one stream of consciousness amid many and to hold it long enough for meaning to grow. Focus is the art of remembering what you truly care about every time. You let your attention be stolen by things that do not feed your spirit. You trade moments of life for fragments of noise, and yet you can reverse it by one conscious return, one breath, one act of stillness at a time. This is what James meant when he said the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. To choose is to reclaim the author seat of your own story. When you wake tomorrow, do not promise yourself to focus all day. That is too heavy. Instead, promise to return once, just once, when your mind drifts. Bring it back when your energy scatters. Gather it softly. The world will not stop distracting you, but you can stop surrendering so easily that gentle discipline repeated day after day will turn into strength, and that strength will become peace. Focus is not a rare gift. It is the quiet courage to begin again. There comes a day when you realize that your attention has been living everywhere, except in your own life. You are answering messages while thinking of tomorrow. You are eating while watching a screen. You are speaking while already rehearsing what to say next. Every moment becomes an echo of the next one, never quite lived. William James understood that attention is not only about the mind, it is about the soul. He believed that what we repeatedly focus on becomes our world, not in theory, but in actual nervous tissue. Every choice of focus wires the brain a little differently, and slowly we become the pattern of what we attend to. If you focus on anger, it becomes easier to be angry. If you focus on compassion, that too begins to carve its path within you. He once wrote that we become what we give our attention to, and the modern science of neuroplasticity now proves him right. The mind is like a muscle, but also like clay. It hardens around what it touches long enough. When you understand this, you start to see that focus is sacred. Every thought you nurture, every worry you rehearse, every gratitude you hold, they all leave traces in your system. So when your mind keeps wandering toward the things that drain you, it is not simply distraction, it is self-erosion. And the opposite is also true when you start to hold your attention on things that nourish you. You begin to rebuild from the inside. Imagine sitting quietly with a cup of tea and deciding to taste it fully for 1 minute. The warmth, the scent, the weight of the cup in your hands. You're not escaping the world, you're shaping your nervous system to recognize peace again. A man once told a story about how he rebuilt his attention after years of burnout. He worked in a busy city where noise was constant. His phone was never silent. He was proud of being productive until one day his body collapsed from exhaustion. His doctor told him nothing was wrong physically, but his mind had been sprinting for too long. He began to walk every morning without headphones, just listening to footsteps and air. It felt meaningless at first, but within weeks he noticed colors returning, sounds becoming richer. Time slowing down, focus returned. Not as a force, but as a friend. That story is what James called the habit of attention, turning effort into ease through repetition, not willpower but willingness. The reason most people fail to strengthen their focus is that they expect it to feel good. It rarely does at the start training. The mind is like stretching a muscle that has been neglected. It aches, it resists, it trembles. But James taught that the path to freedom lies exactly there, in that discomfort. The effort of attention is the act of reclaiming choice. It is how the automatic self begins to serve the conscious one. You do not need to sit for hours to practice this. It begins in small things. When you wash dishes, stay with the sound of water when you walk. Notice the feeling of the ground when you talk to someone. Let your eyes stay where your heart is. These simple acts are not small. They are the training ground of awareness. Think of a painter sitting before a canvas. Her studio is quiet except for the sound of the brush. Her phone lies turned off somewhere. In another room, she paints for hours unaware of time, not because she forced herself to concentrate, but because she fell in love with what she was doing. Attention deepens through love, not tension. James believed that the most powerful attention is born from interest, not duty to love something or someone enough to give it. Your full awareness is the most natural discipline of all. The problem is that most people never slow down enough to discover what truly interests them. You can try this. Tonight, take a sheet of paper and write one sentence beginning with the words, "I want to pay more attention to," then finish it without thinking. It could be your child, your work, your health, your mornings, whatever it is. Let that sentence stay somewhere, visible for a few days, and whenever you feel scattered, read it again and bring yourself back to it. This is how you begin to redirect your focus deliberately, not through guilt, but through care. William James said that our lives are the sum of what we attend to. If so, then the art of living well is the art of choosing wisely what deserves that sacred light of your mind. It does not mean you must ignore pain or pretend distractions do not exist. It means you must learn to return again and again to what gives life weight and meaning. The mind will always wander, that is its nature, but the miracle is that you can always bring it home. The more often you do, the stronger that homecoming becomes. Focus is not about control, it is about intimacy, the deep quiet knowing of where you are meant to be. One day you will look back and see that the moments you felt most alive were not when you were chasing everything at once, but when you were fully present in one small thing, a laugh, a word, a detail. Gov light on the wall. Those moments are what make life real, and they only exist where focus lives. That is what James wanted us to understand. That attention is not a prison, but a path back to wholeness. It is the unseen thread that weaves meaning into the ordinary and teaches us that even in a restless age we still have the power to choose what kind of world we create inside ourselves. The truth about focus is that it does not arrive suddenly like lightning. It grows like morning light slowly. Quietly through the cracks of ordinary life, William James believed that attention is the beginning of all transformation. He wrote that the faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment. Character and will, if that is true, then our lives are nothing more than the accumulation of small returns of attention. Every time we return, we rebuild ourselves. Every time we choose to attend, we sculpt a little more of who we are meant to be. The modern world wants you to forget this. It tells you that meaning comes from doing more, being faster, reaching further. But James would whisper that the sacred work lies not in speed but in steadiness, in the willingness to stay. There is a story about an old craftsman who made clocks by hand each day. He would polish the smallest gears and align them until they moved in harmony. When asked why he spent hours on something no one would see, he smiled and said, "Because I will know that it is." Right? That quiet integrity is what focus looks like in the soul. You do not focus to impress you. Focus to be true to yourself, to live from the inside out, instead of the outside. In every person who learns to hold their attention, learns to build peace even in chaos. The next time you feel scattered, close your eyes and imagine your attention as a beam of light moving gently back to one simple thing. Maybe your breath, maybe a sound, maybe the feeling of your feet on the ground. It will not stay long, but that is all right. Each return strengthens it like lifting a small invisible weight. James would remind you that the strength of your will is not measured by how perfectly you focus, but by how often you begin. Again, focus is mercy, not punishment. And every time you choose it, you are teaching your brain that presence is safe again. The truth is that the world will always compete for your attention, but your awareness is not a battlefield, it is a garden. You decide what grows. There the weeds of distraction will always return, but so will the seeds of peace if you keep tending them gently. Without expectation, the act itself becomes freedom. There is a moment each day when you can reclaim yourself from the noise, when you remember that focus is not about control, but about belonging. Belonging to your task, your body, your breath, your life. In this way, focus is love in motion. And when the day ends and the noise fades, let yourself rest in the quiet satisfaction that you chose to live awake. Even if only for a few moments, you did not let the world steal your inner world. You trained your attention like a muscle, and that muscle will carry you toward a calmer, clearer self. This is what William James wanted us to know, that the mind is not a storm to be tamed, but an ocean to be understood. When you learn to ride its waves, you discover that peace is not far away. It is already here, waiting behind the next breath, the end.